Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe. If you dare. All the owner did was to say the billionaire's name, and the health inspector said, "Oh, okay, bye." Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. People who work in high-class restaurants and hotels, what is the most ridiculous, stereotypical rich person thing you've ever experienced someone has done? Number 1. I operated a premium chain restaurant in Canada. One day this Indian gentleman started coming in, at first by himself. On the first day he spent $200 on wine and tipped $1,000. The next day he did the same again. When we saw him the third time, I had servers fighting over him. Anyway, one evening he got drunk on wine and Brad the busboy made the mistake complimenting his watch. Mr. S takes off his tag and gives it to Brad. The next morning Mr. S comes back to get his car and asks if Brad is there. I say yes and go get him. Brad knows what's up and is removing the watch as he walks over to Mr. S. Mr. S says, "Brad, I'm really sorry I got drunk last night and gave you my watch." Brad is chuckling as he is removing the watch and says it's no problem and he was just holding the watch until Mr. S returned. The next thing Mr. S said, "I could not believe, Brad, you don't understand, I'm sorry because it was very rude of me to give you a used gift." And at that moment Mr. S pulled out a box with a brand new Tag Heuer inside and handed it to Brad. Number 2. I interviewed at a large hotel attached to a casino, and while I was being shown around the front desk, a woman walked up, said nothing, and got room keys after being greeted by the front desk agent. She immediately turned and walked away. Then the manager who was interviewing turned to me and said, "That's Mrs. Rich Ladypants. You never ask her for her name, her ID, or God forbid a credit card. She stays here once or twice a week because her husband spends so much in the casino. If you upset her she will yell at you and then hand the person working next to you a $100 bill just to spite you." I ended up turning down a job there, thankfully so, because apparently she wasn't the only guest of her type there. Number 3. My uncle works at a very upscale restaurant on a very well-to-do and desirable vacation island in the Atlantic Ocean. One of their regular customers is a billionaire oil guy. My uncle has told me, he arrives on a yacht that tows a smaller yacht. The smaller yacht is still big enough to have a helicopter. He demands to have his dogs seated at the table and feeds them foie gras and expensive water. When he takes friends to eat, my uncle has never seen him with the same woman twice, and often it's at a table full of women. If he really liked the meal he would go through the restaurant and, in front of everyone, peel off crisp 100s from a giant roll of money in his pocket and tip every service person whether they helped or not. One time the owner got a call from health inspectors saying they received a complaint that dogs were seen eating in the restaurant. All the owner did was speak the billionaire's name, and the health inspector said, "Oh, okay, bye." Number 4. Don't work at any high-class restaurants or hotels, but I currently live in an old yet nice and comfy apartment in Giza, around 20 minutes from the Pyramids complex. The landlady is a very nice old lady, probably in her 60s, and is filthy rich. Last year my car had to be repaired after a minor crash for more than a week, and when the landlady found out from the Bewabsdorman about my situation, she sent one of her English-speaking mates to give me car keys for a BMW 520i, Mercedes-Benz S600, and a brand new Land Cruiser. The madam insists you use her car until yours is repaired. I was shocked, of course, and asked her if she still could go around with her lending this much cars to me. "No worry, madam has 12 cars in Al Kahira." Okay, I guess. I ended up only using the Land Cruiser because it's the cheapest one, I think. Another story is when she knew I would graduate from college soon. She asked me to come visit her place, I did as she asked, and she just gave me a set of keys and some money. "Here, I have a nice villa in Ain Sokna. Go visit it with friends and family, food and drinks is on me, I have maids and cooks there. You can use mine, the money is for fuel. Happy graduation." I told her that I just couldn't take it, but she just shooed me away and told me to return her keys only after I really visited the villa. Haven't gone to the place yet, but I will soon enough when I have time. Ridiculous, yeah, but in a really good way. Number 5. I worked for a resort in the Seychelles for 4 years. I have hundreds of stories which would fit this post, but one that stands out was a very wealthy Canadian family who stayed at one of the private residences for a couple of weeks. They brought their own staff including 2 personal chefs, but also asked for a hotel chef to assist their team with prep and local ingredient knowledge. A chef, which happened to be my friend, was selected to spend the 2 weeks with them. One day, Another member of their staff came down to one of the restaurants and purchased 2 bottles of wine for euro 11,000 plus each. Now we had far more expensive bottles on the list, but this was still a notable sale, and later that night, I asked my mate what they had cooked to accompany the wine. Turns out they had poured both bottles into the pot while making a coq au vin. Coq au vin is a French dish of chicken braised with wine, lardons, mushrooms, and optionally garlic. Number 6. I used to work at a ski resort that sits at the top of a steep canyon. The geography is pretty extreme and people don't want to drive through the snow, so everyone with enough money stays directly at the resort. Our rooms generally weren't over the top luxurious, but we had probably the second or third nicest hotel in the resort area and saw some rich clientele. One time someone in sales or reservations screwed up with a conference, which caused the significantly larger and more 5-star luxury style place up the hill to become oversold. So naturally they bumped some of them down to our hotel. Normally this isn't a big deal. We comp them enough stuff like free spa passes at the 5 place and a meal and they'd be happy. They're coming for some random conference that sold a huge block of rooms. They probably didn't even know what hotel they were at or what type of room they were in. As someone who works at a higher end hotel, you get really sensitive to people's body languages, and you can tell when people are grumpy. Normally they're just tired from a long trip or pissed at their spouse or something, and it has nothing to do with you, but you can see it 100 yards away. This guy walked through the door and was broadcasting his shitty attitude like there was a giant lighthouse light strapped on his head. Not only was he pissed off, but he kept making eye contact with me to let me know he was pissed off about the move and pissed off that he had to wait in line to check in. I knew when he walked up that he was going to go off. He gave me the typically shitty attitude interrogation. What's going on? Why did this happen? Are you incompetent? Yada yada. It was really unpleasant, but I'm a pro. I was doing pretty good at the hospitality verbal kung fu and not giving him anything to be pissed off at me about. He started asking about the amenities of the hotel, looking for an opening. Do you have a pool? Yes, sir, we do. Here's your key. Do you have a restaurant? Yes, sir. It's really fantastic. Here's a voucher for a meal on us. Would you like me to make you a reservation? Do you have a spa? Yes. We have steam room, sauna, and a masseuse on contract. We also would be happy to take you to the 5 spa at any time. Here's the number for our valet driver. What time would you prefer your appointment? It's also worth noting that we're like 100 yards away from the other building. We even had a 24-hour valet to come pick them up and drive them around, literally on call if they didn't want to walk through the snow. We have a better restaurant than the 5 place at normal prices, a nice gym, nice pool, the whole 9 yards. This was a wipe your ass if you ask about the nice kind of hospitality environment that most people really enjoyed. He couldn't really find anything to complain about, but he was still interrogating me. Then he asked me about the ski lockers. Do you have ski lockers? Yes, sir. The ski locker is on the 1st floor, just across the walkway from the tram center, so you can unload without having to walk up any stairs. The locker number is just your room number. Here's your combination. Do you have boot warmers? No, sir. We do not. He'd finally found something to go off about. The dude threw his head back and let out a big, ooh. You don't have boot warmers? What kind of place doesn't even have boot warmers in the locker room? You expect me to put on my skis when they're frozen cold in the morning? What am I supposed to do, put them in my room where they'll get all smelly? Dude proceeded to unleash on me for a good 3 or 4 minutes all the pent-up rage he'd been building for the last hour or so, except his target was how ridiculous it was that we didn't have electric boot warmers in his private ski locker at the luxury hotel. I worked in high-end hospitality for 10 years, and probably the second worst ass chewing I ever received from a customer was over our lack of effing boot warmers. Number 7. I worked at a nice restaurant in downtown Portland, and one day a lady called to make a dinner reservation for a large group. But first she starts asking all these questions about security, we had none, and how I thought the staff and patrons would handle a celebrity dining there. Is there enough space to be private? They like to be private. Would it be okay if they brought their own security, to stop people from taking pictures and such? Etc. But of course, I couldn't give names. I rolled my eyes, told her whatever they need to do, and booked the date and time. Yes, I was super curious who it would be, and stayed past my shift to see who walked through the doors when the big night came. The group arrived, and it was no one. Not one of us who worked there recognized a single member of their party. They sure acted like they were someone, but all we saw was a loud group of douchey-looking 20-somethings. They actually did bring a bodyguard who stood in the corner with sunglasses on the whole time. The only attention they got from other diners was the occasional side-eye because they were being such rude and obnoxious assholes. Shock of shocks, they treated our staff horribly, and tipped even worse. We'll never know who that person thought they were. For those of you asking about the autograph, that actually jogged a whole new memory. We did try to add 18%, but the party threw a massive fit about that, complained about the service, which I'm sure was fine, it was a well-known place, and refused to pay it, so the manager took it off so as not to create a bigger scene. Left the server in tears. I think everyone just wanted to get them out by that point. Number 8. Back when I was waitering, there was a woman and her friends at one of my tables. The woman asked for a can of Coke, Coca-Cola, just so we're clear. When I brought their drinks and gave the woman her Coke, she looked at me and, in that typical rich bitch voice, said, "Excuse me, honey? I asked for Fanta, not Coke." So I apologized, wrote it onto my notepad, and went back to get her a can of Fanta. Brought it to her and again she turned to me and said, "I didn't ask for Fanta, I asked for cream soda." By this time, I was getting a bit annoyed, but went back and got her a cream soda anyway. And surely, when I returned to her table, she did the same thing again. I asked for Sprite. Should I call the manager? So, for the last time, I smiled and I went back to the kitchen and packed one can of each, Coke, cream soda, Fanta, Sprite, Pepsi, and Sparberry soda, into a small plastic box and took it all to her and said, "Here you go, miss, take your pick." She looked offended and almost made a scene. She started lecturing me about how I'm incapable of getting the simplest order right and that she wants to talk to the restaurant's manager. I told her that I can call him, and that I'll show him all the soda types I wrote on my notepad that she asked for, and we can get his opinion on the matter. She turned and took her damn Sprite out of the plastic box and said, "Just leave it." Her friends were silent throughout the whole ordeal and none of them gave me any issues further on. I didn't receive a tip, as expected, but I shrugged it off. Most customers were decent. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time.